YouTube. I'm Dane Golden here with Shelly Saves the Day and Gwen Miller. We're going to talk about how to be safe on YouTube here on the live stream. And just an announcement, I've changed the name of this show slash podcast to Video Marketing Live. And so you can still get it at videomarketingvalue.com for the podcast version, but I'm going to change the URL to videomarketinglive.tv, I think. But you can always get it on my channel, the Video Up channel, and Shelly's channel, Shelly Saves the Day. But let's talk about how to be safe on YouTube, starting with Shelly Saves the Day. Shelly, being online, being on video, being on different platforms, let's focus more on YouTube in general. But let's start us off on some things you need to do to be safe when you are a creator on YouTube.
Well, I think there's a couple of things that we have to think about. There's a couple layers of it. One, if you are a public personality type of person, and another, like if you are a brand or a business, because Gwen and I may not want someone to know exactly what city or our address, but as a business, you want people to come by your place of business. You want people
Right.
to know in what city you're helping people, or the location of your website. There's a lot of information that you want out there. So these things can be diametrically opposed. So you also have to take into account, are we coming at it from a brand and business standpoint? Are we coming at it from a personal, you are the brand, because sometimes one person is a brand type of lens as well. So, my favorite, it depends which
It
lens that
depends.
we're
Wait,
looking
take a
through.
drink. Said it depends.
Drink every time, right? Please don't. You'll be on the floor. So that is going to be one of the very first lenses that we need to look through. So again, like, we're going to want people to know where our address is. For if we're going to take an additional layer into, I'm a public persona, such as like a celebrity, and I've created a YouTube channel, that's the type of thing where you don't want people coming by your house and letting people know. So there are a few things that I would always go into, such as number one, and I'll just start with one, and then so we don't monopolize and let everyone else in.
Right.
But one is starting with your own comment section. If you are someone who has a big staff and can do a lot of comment moderation, you can also have YouTube help you with auto comment moderation. You could also go in with a library of things that you would want excluded, and people forget. Like, it could be anything from part of your social security number, part of your telephone number, part of your address, maybe the city in which, or your maiden name if you happen to be someone who has changed names since marriage. There are certain pieces of identifying information that you may want obfuscated for obvious reasons. So that would be one of the first places I would start, is, can I limit or kind of control the moderation with comments, and can I hide certain keywords for things in my comments as well?
And Gwen Miller, you've worked with a lot of different companies with very high profile YouTubers and real celebrities, should we call them? What do you have to do when you're working with folks to make sure that there's not problems created by them being more accessible on YouTube?
Right. When you're dealing with celebrities, like it's usually not a secret like what city they live in. It's like it's Los Angeles, people. Like, so you have to be very careful that you're not giving out more identifiable features that makes them much more easily tracked down. So one of the rules that we always have is we don't show the front door of your house. That is something,
Right.
and if they can find your neighborhood, they can walk along and disidentify the front door. The other one that a lot of people don't think about is the reverse of that. You need to be careful when you're shooting inside the house, that if you have a view out the window, if it's identifiable what's out the window, they can then pin you down and find you that way. That is something that a lot of YouTubers specifically have found out the hard way, of people showing up at their door because they've identified it off of just a single shot out the window of their house, which is just crazy when you think about it. But a lot of these people will go to quite a bit of lengths. Another one, if you're doing an unboxing, people, please Sharpie out those personal information.
Mm-hmm.
All these things are things. Now, let's talk about the scenario here where, yeah, maybe you are a physical business. Obviously, if you're an online business, I don't need to know where your location is, so don't reveal that sort of stuff. But say you are a business that has a solid location that people need to walk into. There's a lot of things you can do, especially to protect your employees who might be regularly in the videos, right? Maybe they don't have their last names. You don't say their last names if they don't really want to establish themselves as a big online persona. And even then, a lot of online personalities never do reveal their last name. They just have an identifiable handle. So there are options where you can kind of make it harder for people to track down your employees at their actual home, and kind of limit the exposure.
This reminds me when I was when our company was managing the YouTube channel for Justice for Girls, if you know that brand, 1,000 stores around the country, and they had some girls on YouTube that would teach you how to do the floss, or a dance, or how to get dressed in this certain way, or how to do a front somersault, or whatever it was that 10 and 11 and 12-year-old girls like to do. One of the videos, and we were always on the lookout for this, but one of the videos was a girl just at her school talking, but it showed in the background what the name of it just was slightly obscured, but it was pretty easy to figure out what the name of the school was. And I'm like, back to the editor, I'm like, no,
Take it.
we can't do that. So we were very, very conscious, and there's all sorts of additional requirements with kids that adults, there's certain laws, but that's just one other thing. Like, that you may think that in the background is just something you've seen 1,000 times because you're filming at home, but it might have identifiable information like photos or some sort of information that gives more information about you than you might want to give. Shelly, your thoughts on that?
Yep. And to Gwen's point, not only can you Sharpie out your address, especially on mailings, and you see that a lot on unboxings as well, but I would go a step further and usually have a UPS box or a PO box. My preference is usually a UPS box because it has a street address, which looks more like a real address, and they will accept your packages for you. Whereas I've heard that PO boxes can refuse them if it's not postal service. So if it's FedEx or something else, then they can refuse them. So UPS boxes are usually a little bit more, but you get a real street address, which is nice. So also, if that happens to catch into a video, it's not your actual mailing address, which is an additional step that you can take. I also would encourage people to have like a Google Voice number or something where maybe it's not your real phone number that you're giving out to people, but you can still communicate, and that will go through an internet service that will forward a lot of those phone calls to you. But you also need to go a step further and perhaps not have like your name, perhaps, in that automated voicemail that comes up, pay attention to the voicemail thing that's happening, because things like that can actually be the thing that comes back and gets you. And Gwen also mentioned that sometimes you don't actually have last names for people in videos, just first names. And up until, a job that I had at a previous company, I always went by Shelly Saves the Day. So it was always news to someone when they would actually find out what my last name was, and it wasn't the day. Because in most it's like first name Shelly Saves, and then the second is like the day. So they're like, you have a last name, and I'm like, yes I do, but
It would be really crazy if your last name actually was
was the
Day.
day. I know,
I
right?
did grow up with a family with the last name Day,
Yeah.
and the kids were like Roman Day, Summer Day. Like they all had like puns
Please
on
don't
the
disclose
last.
their
Holiday.
names on this channel. Please don't disclose their names.
I haven't seen them since I'm 6, so I don't know where they are in the country. But I guess if you find out, let me know because I don't know either.
All right. So I just want to bubble up some of the comments in the chat crew here. James Pruitt says, "What's your last name?" Quote,
The
"It
day.
saved the day."
The day.
And Annette Portalatin
Portalatin? I think so.
says, "I used to shop at Justice for my daughter." And Dutch Can Jam says, Yes, Sharpie, tape, or blur out personal info. Shelly did a Final Cut Pro tutorial a while back on masking or blurring parts of a clip that I still use to this day. Thank you, Shelly.
You're
And
welcome if you
Annette
can still find it. It's private now.
And,
It's
and Annette
private.
also says, as a real estate agent, I have to disclose my full name on social media for marketing, and it makes me so uncomfortable these days. Wish there was another way, but it is what it is. And let's talk about that when you are a local person. And in fact, some people may actually be showing, some people video houses and put them online that are not their houses. So that's a whole other element, is when you're selling your house, somebody may be doing some sort of clip up on it. So how do you anonymize your house so that people don't, know exactly so much about you now that your house is public, essentially.
Right, you're staging your house. Well, then definitely
You
stage it,
take down your
right?
photos. Yep. Yeah,
Take down your
absolutely.
photos.
Because
Put up
actually,
those
I think a real estate agent should be privy to telling their clients anyway. If it was a celebrity house, a lot of the time, they're going to advise you, like no one wants to walk through the house and see Christmas memories of, they want to envision themselves in the house. So you're going to come in,
yeah.
have some stagers, take down the personal photos. So a lot of the time, you shouldn't know what celebrity is in this house. And not only that, but the real estate agent is going to be more discerning on, you have to have an appointment, you have to be pre-qualified, you have to have, yada, yada, to make sure that you're able to view it. But also another thing for, I think, a lot of those real estate television shows, they would usually do it like a month or two after the person has moved out or the
Mhm.
thing is sold, because just like you don't want to post an Instagram story in the minute while you're at the concert or while you're at the restaurant and then be surprised when someone shows up, right? We've seen how Kim Kardashian, one of the reasons why she had gotten in trouble and robbed in Paris was all of the people using social media to track her almost in real time to know where she was and her location. So if you now are going to be out and be on social media like most of us are, there should be a post after you leave the restaurant type of rule. Something like that. It doesn't have to be in the moment, because that's also giving people your location and then actually decreasing your personal safety.
And Gwen Miller, I will tell you something. So in your YouTube comments, you can block all sorts of things. Shelley mentioned
Mhm.
addresses and so forth. I actually block all domains, so they're
Oh,
not
interesting.
clickable.
Yeah.
So all
Yeah.
domain suffixes, so you can't actually add a domain suffix, and swear words. But are there certain types of phrases or things that are on the continuum of like beginning of stalking type of thing that you just like, let's
Right.
just let's just put that down? And what do you do when there becomes someone that's problematic, but you're a brand or a media company? What do you do?
Yeah, look, I think the first line of defenses are that comment moderation. Because to your point, kind of what you're saying is like, yes, like we want to deter real world harm, but there's plenty of harm that can just happen online, right? You get one of those URLs up there, you click on it, and someone fishes you for like $50,000, like that's like someone coming into your house and stealing all your stuff, right? And a lot of the times, I know that a lot of large creators right now are very much struggling with this. Is there's a lot of impersonation going on online,
Okay.
where they'll take your avatar. There's currently no system within YouTube that prevents duplication of avatars like there is duplication of videos. So they have your avatar and they can pretty much just masquerade as your channel, and they can pop up and say, I would suggest, banning words like "you won," like
WhatsApp,
"DM me for,"
DM,
because that's
inquiry,
very common.
prizes. Yeah.
Yeah, you
I'm
win a
Have you
actually
guys
glad
ever
you brought that up, because I had that on my Post-it as well, as I always do, right? But
show the post-it? Show the
there's
post-it.
my Post-it. My Post-it today was also then as stewards of basically our audience and being able to protect them against harm as well. Like, we have a responsibility not only to protect ourselves from these things, but also our audience. And so I'm glad that you brought that, because impersonation is thing, the bots and are just out of control. And so can you have those things by blocking URLs? Yes. Can you block certain words? and the certain string of emojis that seem to happen repeatedly as the comments come in. Absolutely. But there is something, I mean, you have to be able to educate your audience, and whether it's a community post, whether it's, hey, y'all, in a video, you say, if you see these, I'm never asking you for your WhatsApp. I'm never asking you for your email. I'm never asking you for, to pay money for something unless I'm actually selling you something. And so you have to continually say these things, because I've also seen a person who is like a face of a brand or something. And I saw in a social media Facebook group where someone else was coming in and starting to say bad things about this person, but it wasn't actually them. It was someone impersonating them. And then they were now kind of bad mouthing them, saying, like, I can't believe they said this. I thought they were really nice. And then like someone clicked on it, like, that's not even them. And so, that's also protection of your own brand because of impersonation from others. So it goes on multiple facets.
Now, one thing that the vidIQ app does that I don't think any other app does is it says in comments right by the name, it says how many subscribers that person has.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it says, this person has 10 subscribers, but it's actually a 1 million person account, that's one good way of
Right.
ferreting out this person is an imposter.
Yeah.
Though it's crazy, Dane. Some of these accounts these days, like there's a lot of, and there was a great, I have to find this video, but there's a great expose on YouTube about there's a bunch of like 12-year-old kids essentially out there who are doing the same strategy, but all they're doing is to build subscribers for absolutely no reason. But when you're that age, right? It's like clout, right? Oh, this is
Sure.
great. And then eventually they will realize, oh, maybe it's more valuable if I scam people. But some of them are just building, and or they're scamming because someone's hired them to. When you buy subscribers, you can get involved in a lot of shady shit, and this is one of the shady shit type of things you can get involved with. Is someone who's going to go out there and just be like sub for sub. Let me tell you, Mr. Beast is never subbing for subbing.
Let me ask about something a little bit, more sensitive. Let's say you have a problem, and I don't know how the problem exists. You have someone that is harassing you, either online or in person. What is your course of action as a creator, or maybe just a follower or something? But suddenly now you have someone that you're like, I don't feel safe, or this is potentially going to be a problem, and I don't see how that YouTube can resolve it. What do you do legally? Do you call the police? Do you sue someone? Do you get a restraining order? They may be in another country, another city. What are your choices of options of things to do? I'll ask Shelly first.
It depends on the situation. I'm going to say one, screenshots are usually your friend.
Why?
You can try to, well, we'll get there. You can try to hide them from your channel, ban them from any comments. But if a lot of the time for some people, they will just continually pop up, make new accounts, and then you'll see a similar type of comment pattern happening. And so then you begin to almost build a folder or case of body of evidence. It is something then that you would have to contact law enforcement about, and hope that they have some sort of cybercrimes division that can actually help. Or you could try and report their profile, and actually a lot of the time when you're reporting, sometimes you can also get an email where you can send the screenshots and such. Or you for certain channels and sizes, they'll have a chat option where you could do that, and you can start communicating with them, and then they'll usually ask for screenshots or something like that as well. As well as, it's just good to have, if you do need to go to law enforcement, and have both things, maybe a police report and a report with YouTube or something, because a lot of the time one may not take action without the other. And then you can always do what I've done, is if you can find their parents online and have a conversation with them as well. That also works. So there's lots of things that you can do.
Do you have any other ideas on this, Gwen, or did Shelley say it all?
I think that's pretty comprehensive.
So, be be okay with, reporting to police, be okay with challenging their parents or communicating and saying, do you know what your son or daughter is doing?
That is precisely what I said. And they
Because here's
were
what they're
aghast
doing.
when I gave them screenshots, and I can show you what your son is up to online and how he
Mhm.
talks to people online. And that's the conversation maybe you wanna have with him, and if it's okay with you, then that's, at least I've done my due diligence, but, like, maybe you wanna take a look at this.
Mhm. And without saying any names or any situations, can you tell me what happened?
Oh, the father and I had a very nice little chat about it. It was, it was directed at me, my ethnicity, and my gender, and so, the father was apologetic. I'm like, "You're not the one who did it, your son is responsible," and, he said that he would have a conversation with him. It probably wasn't gonna be a pleasant one. He was surprised that these things were also coming out of him, given their household dynamics and the makeup of their family, so that was a little bit somewhat encouraging, and then, after that, the harassment pseudo stopped. But I can tell you one thing too, that if you are gonna approach someone like that, you better have the screenshots or something to be, because a lot of parents will be like, "My kid would never." Just like, if you're a teacher, your student, that you're mistaken. My angel would never. And you're like, "Let me show you what your angel has done." It's a little bit irrefutable to be like, "Okay, maybe that, you
And
Photoshop that." I'm like, "No."
and when you said you communicated or chatted, does this like a Facebook chat type of
It
thing?
was.
Okay. Now let's come back to that as more thoughts come up, but I want to talk about something else that I do when I'm managing YouTube channels. And you think, oh, well, you're managing, you have permissions, you know, no problem. But people give me essentially the keys to their business channel, which is representing them. So we are very, very careful on how we manage a business's channel. Some of the things we do: number one, if you're watching YouTube, don't be logged in to the channel that you're managing that is not your channel. So it seems like a
Yeah.
silly
Yeah.
thing, but what happens? So even if you're watching a YouTube video that's embedded in another website and you watch that channel and you're watching about, real estate flippers or something like that, but then it's a clothing channel or whatever, what happens when that client logs into their YouTube channel? They're going to see all these references and related videos about what happens when you flip a house, which is totally unrelated. So, hygienically, log into your own channel anytime you're watching your own videos. Don't be doing your personal. But if you are logging into something that's related to that channel and you're acting essentially as a proxy for that business, yeah, be logged into that channel because that's relevant. So that's just something real basic. Depending on the situation, we may also use proxies or VPNs because can give greater security and you'd be less hackable. And even, what we do when we're managing YouTube channels in other countries and other languages, we actually use a VPN. We log in into that country. So if it's France or Spain or Germany, we will be a VPN in that country, viewing the channel in German, so that if there's any tweak on the YouTube size that says, hey, people who upload in Germany would like to see German videos, we feel that that's, just good hygiene, not quite so much in safety, but it all combines into a good management process. So you're not creating any security holes. You want to have password protected everything. You don't want to leave your laptop open at the cafe, all these other
Yeah.
security things, because you hold the keys of that business in your hand and it's very important to their image.
It also goes
Which
to your own
remind which
account.
yeah, which reminds me, if you're screen recording, close all your tabs, please.
Oh, yeah. Yes, absolutely. But two-factor authentication is also going to be something that, I mean, there's a lot of phishing and hacking attempts out there right now. So something like that, having the Authenticator app or some sort of YubiKey or something, and especially if you have a lot of people who are logging into one specific type of group company account, you probably don't want to share the keys to the kingdom. You may want to invest in some sort of like LastPass or group thing where you have an admin controlled one where they don't get the master password, they just get access from, the side door that you program in for them.
And a lot of password services will only show the password that actually aligns to that channel. So if someone spoofs a channel and pretends to do that, then it's, you actually can't log in with that password protection. Now, this didn't used to be so much of a problem, but a number of tools, well, I think it used to be actually more of a problem. Not so much of a problem now, but a number of tools work with the YouTube API, Rev, TubeBuddy, vidIQ. So they're actually handshaking, so they do get access of a sort to the channel. They could upload captions, they can change data. I would say only do this with companies that you personally can verify and respect and know people are working with without a lot of problems.
Mhm.
Because there may be a new company, like used to be companies would say, hey, join our group and we'll share ad revenue with you, right? This used to be the big industry,
Oh, yeah.
but you would have to give them access and now control. So be careful with that, but not so much a problem with business. Let's talk about, is there any safety, security, or brand safety issues when a business interacts with an influencer? What are the safety issues? I can't, none come to mind unless um, I'm giving away like internal documents, or
Confidentiality and
the,
yeah.
the video is on content that I feel is not safe. But I don't really think that that's an issue that is that big a deal, right?
I mean, if you ask a brand safety is the number one thing they're concerned about.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I would
So
say
how do they solve that then with working with an influencer?
control. So this is where the
I was
struggle
gonna
comes
go
in.
with scope of work and creative brief, but we could go with your word. We could
It's
go with
always
your
a bit of a, a give and take, a pull each way, where the brand initially, especially when they're talking to a creator that they haven't worked with before, can get very controlling over that creative and what goes in there, and they want to see every second and approve every second. Now, if you can prove to them that, hey, no, I'm trustworthy, like trust me, that tends to loosen up over time. But and I personally like, my typical rules for branded content are, hey, you get to essentially, the only creative control you have is over your little segment. Like, that's where you get to give the notes, with one exception. I do allow them to watch the entire thing for brand safety. So just to kind of ease that, I'm like, hey, you cannot muck with, because a lot of these marketers secretly want to be in entertainment, so they would love to give you like creative structure notes. Do not allow them to do that. It will make your life insane and the video won't perform as well, because they do not know. But to kind of get over what is their number one fear in life, this is what marketers, in the middle of the night, wake up in a cold sweat about. Like, to do that, I'm like, you can see the entire thing. You can make sure, if you are uncomfortable with the word damn at 3 minutes and 20 seconds, let me know. We'll take it out if it's a brand safety concern.
I was going to say there's actually two prongs to safety as well, and that is going to be reputation and brand, loyalty and stigma that could be cast on it because of either association with said influencer or things said in video. So, brand safety as an influencer and brand safety as the brand possibly even sponsoring or just as a company in general, you really have to make sure that those things can be aligned and hopefully that works well together. But even if you don't work with an influencer and you're just worrying about the videos that are coming out, you know, It's kind of like when you liken it to a politician who then is now in the news for some unsavory acts that have happened. It's tarnishing their brand as they're running for Supreme Court justice or something like that. Are there things out there that are going to potentially come back and get you that you really have to either cut off at the pass or already have a story for or be on the defensive about? And maintaining the safety and integrity of that. And maybe that means not working with certain types of influencers, right? You don't want to work with people in certain locations or people of certain checkered pasts, and that's protecting your brand's safety and integrity, and that's really, really important for a lot of brands.
Yeah, you should be doing a basic level of research about these talent. And if you're a bigger company, you should be doing a lot of research
A
about these
lot of
influencers
research,
before you're working.
because the
But
last
even
thing
if
you
like
want is the audience to
yeah,
screw you, for
at the
picking
very
someone.
least, you should be Googling their name with the word scandal on it. Like, and seeing what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
What about when we show up in a video? This isn't really seeming to be a big issue anymore, but sometimes we show up in a video we don't want to be in. Do we have any recourse if we're in a YouTube video and we don't want to be in it? Can we ask them to
You
take it
can reach
down?
out to the creator and ask them to blur you. And the great thing is now that YouTube Studio, you can blur things that are already up. Because you're never going to get these people to like take down the video. And it's much more difficult. There isn't a real great process for YouTube to like make a personal image claim, as far as I know. So your best bet is to rely on the good graces of that creator to be like, and most of them, if they're good people, will be like, oh, I didn't, like got it. And if it's easy enough in the tool for them to blur, I mean, it's obviously different if you like it. And on the business or creator side, if this happens, like obviously people in the background, not a big deal, but this is a good reason why you might want to have releases, because if someone gets cold feet, 2 weeks later and wants you to like pull down the video, like you need to have some sort of release that kind of protects you that you agreed to have this for me to use your name and likeness.
I was reading it a different way, like someone is doing a gossip type of thing on you,
Well,
and they're making, drama videos about you. And I'm like, they're not gonna blur your face because you're the whole reason that they're making the video.
yeah, that's
But then again, it's gonna be it depends is, where the clip's
right.
coming from. Are they adding commentary or, changing it in some
Correct.
substantial way? And then if not, then you have the recourse of maybe trying to go the DCMA takedown route.
Yeah. I mean, look, at the end of the day, if it is in any way in the public interest, like most, like if a creator can make any sort of argument, the only time, like when I find, like if you accidentally end up in the background of something that has paid money behind it, like that they're using as an ad, like that's when you might have a leg to stand on if it's for commercial purposes. But if it's entertainment, if it's something that you could claim is in the public interest, you probably don't have a lot of a case. But if you're a channel that's working with advertisers, the bigger the advertiser is, the more sensitive they are to this. So they will require you to blur the people in the background oftentimes if you're doing a branded integration. They'll require you to blur logos. So these are things to think about as you're creating content, that if it really is like everyday YouTube content, most people aren't too precious, and there has been a lot of legal cases that would indicate that you're going to get in big trouble if someone's in the background of your YouTube video. But if you're doing it for in some way, and if they can prove that you're making a lot of money and you're essentially, making commerce off their stuff, then it gets a little bit more hazy.
And I want to add that folks in the chat crew are definitely talking about some situations they know of online bullying and so forth. And if you have other questions about what if questions in the chat, ask us, and we'll give our thoughts on that. But and I'm going to give you guys a second to prepare on this question because I'm going to talk about something else. But is there a recent example over the past few years of some sort of public thing that we can talk about of a dangerous thing on YouTube that happened, that and what eventually happened to do that, or what would we do today on that? So I'm at Shelly or Gwen, I'm going to ask you that question, but I'm first going to tell you that on YouTube ads, you can actually select less problematic content. So you can actually say, listen, I don't want any content that's on the bubble. Just give me the PG or G related content to advertise on. So that's one thing you can do as a brand and a business. Now it curtails your views and it costs more, but you're advertising on better, more quality content that fits your brand. It's brand safe, supposedly. So, can we think of any examples and what happened and then what was the result?
I mean, look, the most tragic and probably the most well known of these incidents would be the Christina Grimmie
Yep.
situation,
So, I don't know
where
what that is.
I was going to
you
mention
do
that too. Yeah.
not.
No.
So this was a very popular YouTuber. How long ago was this, Shelley?
I don't
Everything runs
know.
together for me, but
Oh, was this like
2013 maybe.
Gamergate thing?
No.
No, so this was where because she was she was a singer, so she had her YouTube. She got very popular on YouTube, and she did concerts all around.
Mhm.
This was kind of in the era of YouTubers where they would get very close to their fans. Like they do all
Okay.
these meetups, like at the concerts, they'd be mingling with the fans. And a fan at one of her concerts killed her. So she
Oh
did
my.
die, and that was kind of the start of like I remember the year after that VidCon, like the entire format changed
Mhm.
of how much they would let like the fans, how close they would let them to the creators, because they realized, holy crap, this is like a open keg. They're announcing where they're going to be. They're to have no source of security or protection, and that really, I think, kind of was the warning, the warning for the rest of the community that we needed to take safety a little bit more seriously.
Yep. I was going to mention that. I was going to mention Kim Kardashian because of social media.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to mention Logan Paul returning to VidCon, causing a scene, having non-required meet and greets. It wasn't even that. He was just there and, getting bombarded with people, and it was unsafe for him. It was unsafe for the security guards trying to hold them back, unsafe for a lot of people, unsafe. A lot of the information usually comes from like VidCon or comes from beauty conferences. Also happened where I remember at several of these big beauty ones when beauty YouTube was just starting to get huge, which was around 2016, 2017. We had people who were getting trampled in malls. We had people who, they had to like run and hide and be in stores, and people were like trying to chase them down. So I mean, it's been like this. We've had people
Mm-hmm.
like Jenna Marbles and Julian Solomita, where he had to ask people to stop coming by his house. James Charles, huge beauty influencer, also had someone come by his house. The Dolan twins, I believe, had their father die, and they had to publicly ask people, please don't come to our father's funeral. Or I'm not sure. There was a set of twins, and their father died, and people thought that the funeral was a really great meet and greet press time, and it was like no, like So all of these issues of personal safety, people knowing where they are, in unsafe environments, not only for them, but for the people at the center
Yeah.
of it as well.
I remember witnessing at a VidCon. It was after the Christina thing, but before VidCon started to really like you never see the influencers on outside of on stage now, right? Like they shuttle everyone through the back. So they were still these influencers, creators still had to get to the hotel from VidCon. And so if you've been to VidCon, that's a space where a lot of people are. And this was a major YouTuber. I know I'm friends with his wife, but his wife was very pregnant at that time. So every time that they had to like get to the other side, what he would do was he would go out ahead of her and like start yelling, attract the crowd, run the other direction so that the crowd wouldn't trample his pregnant wife to get to him, which was just mind-blowing to me when I witnessed it.
And on a more granular level, and just on a tools based level on the YouTube platform, Let's just talk about some of the moderation, the granular moderation tools that you can do with a particular comment. For instance, you can certainly celebrate the better comments with hearts and likes and things like that, and re-comments. But you can mute someone or stop them from ever commenting. And when you do that, is it called muting?
It's a hide user from channel.
Now, when that happens, do they think that they're commenting?
I believe that they do. I believe they think that they're still leaving comments, and I believe that if they go to your videos, they can see their own comment there, if I'm not mistaken. But you won't see it, or if it even did, it would be in the held for moderation, but it wouldn't be approved and actually being shown publicly.
Right.
So the comment is just for them.
Pretty much.
And when you hide the user, it should theoretically now, I've been kind of witnessing the back end of this not always working.
Yeah, it doesn't always work.
But they're working on it. But the theory is you hide the user from the channel, it goes back and it hides all the past stuff. So you don't have to clean up
It's
this
supposed
user
to.
hand by
Yeah.
hand. But it's very buggy, doesn't always work. And they're also working on the better systems, essentially better AI to recognize when these people pop back up with clone channels, right? Because
Yeah.
that's the problem.
Like Instagram will do that and says block any accounts that this user may create in the future. I think there's tracking by IP, something like that. And I will say, yeah, the hide previous comments, 20% of the time it works 100% of the time, right? But there are plenty of times it does not work at all.
Yeah.
And yeah, I know that they also have a new beta that you can opt into, which is more stringent AI type of word filtering as well. That should now be available to more and more creators. That shows up in the back end. And so it's in the section where you would hold potentially offensive remarks or, hold all for moderation. Now there's an additional one that says beta, and you can opt into that one as well.
Yeah, so just repeat those levels again. What the levels are of content moderation. One of them is don't do any moderation, right?
Right.
What are some of the other moderation levels and techniques?
Well, it also depends on which platform you're on, because dependent on each type of platform, you could have comments are only allowed by people that are friends or mutuals, or it could be only people that I follow. It could be no one. You could cut it off completely at the source and no one can comment. You can make it so that anyone can comment, no restrictions. You can also have anyone can comment, but all comments are held for approval. Then you could also have the varying levels of moderation from YouTube in the back end with hold potentially offensive or spam, or having your library or opting into the beta. So there's a ton of different levels.
And when you say holding your library, this is a list of words that you've separated by commas that
Yes.
you don't want to be shown if someone comments. And there's also just a checkbox or a tick box that says
Block
don't
URLs.
allow any links, any URLs. But I actually, in addition to that, I actually upload URL suffixes.
I do
And
too.
I also upload a list of it is one of the most foul lists of swear words and so forth. Just have that automatically banned. And then there's these many misspellings of the swear words.
Yes.
But I tell my clients, I say, listen, I'm going to put something on your website. You can look at it if you want. I'm just going to tell you, I am not endorsing any of these words. This is not something I want. This is something we're doing to moderate, and I just want you to know it's on there, but don't freak out. I am not someone who uses these words. I'm preventing these words.
Exactly. Yeah. And I would almost, especially on a children's channel too, I don't think that there could be too much moderation on something like that, because with children and there's just not enough.
Yeah. And I would say, my theory of moderation, especially working on women's lifestyle content, which is that this is not a free speech space. This is a place for women to feel safe talking with each other. And and I think this is kind of the stance you have to take for any community that tends to get targeted, is you need to be fairly strict on what you allow and not allow. I've actually been kind of impressed with some of YouTube's auto catching of like things that they hold. Like they get very nuanced of all the classic comments that people have, like she looks like she had a nose job, and I've seen comments that just like allude to the fact that they're like saying she had a nose job, and the freaking thing catches it, and like are you sure you want to allow bullying based on appearance? So you just make it a space for your audience to feel like they can have constructive conversations. If you leave that sort of nasty comments up in kind of some sort of pursuit of free speech, it just dries up your comment section in your community real lickety split.
You know that there's actually a code of conduct that you can create for your own channel as well. Now they've started rolling this out more and more where the creator themselves can create their own rules, or that will pop up if they're live streaming. It's not really so much that I've seen on video on demand yet, but during live streams, before you can leave a comment, you're supposed to acknowledge or agree to these, which most people don't read. But the fact is, if something like that happens and then you have a moderation team, with the wrenches and something, if something then goes through, they have any excuse they want to then boot that person out, because like you agreed to these rules before you were going to engage in chat, and you've already violated the rules, so you're out of here.
It gives you some cover.
I want to ask one more sort of area here, and that is, if you are a viewer, you're not a channel owner, you're not a creator, but you're either a business or a individual, and you want to be safe on YouTube, maybe don't reveal certain information about yourself, or, every YouTube, person has some sort of about section, even if they don't have videos. What else? Any tips on like don't engage with trolls, or any what can we do to be safe just as viewers, whether we're businesses or individuals? Anything? It's pretty safe generally.
I mean, look, be careful, even in comment sections, like you shouldn't be revealing really personal information about yourself, right? And, never feel like you need to engage with the troll. Like, especially as a woman on these platforms, there's often very little for you to gain doing it. If you want to, if you want to kick some ass like Shelly does, go for it. But it's also no shame just to fully just be like, I'm not engaging, I'm ignoring. Like, this is not worth my mental energy and mental health.
And Pixel Pia says, as a creator, you decide what you are comfortable with in the comment section. You never give in. You decide. It's your house. You decide who you allow in. And on that note, Shelly Saves the Day. How can people find out more about you in a safe way until next week? Till next week.
Please come hang out with me on YouTube or find me on Twitter under Shelly Saves the.
And Gwen Miller, how can people connect with you in a safe way until next week?
You can find me on Twitter under Gwen and then the letters I and M. Or you can find me on LinkedIn, Gwen Miller.
And my name's Dane Golden from the Video Marketing Business Academy. And this is our podcast. It's our live stream. It's on Shelly's channel. It's on Shelly Saves the Day and Vidiup, which is my channel, VIDIUP. And you can also get it as a podcast when you're commuting to work. If you're actually back in the office now, why not listen on the way? Videomarketingvalue.com. And as always, thanks to our chat crew and our viewers. You guys always come up with great questions and comments, and we love to have it. So until next week, here's to helping you help your customers through video.